Hi, I'm Sheila.
And I'm LC, and we're the Ladder Lab. We're the Ladder Lab ladies. We're a mom and daughter, and we're here to help you level up and get unstuck in your career.
Well, we've really made some progress, I think, in our last two videos.
I think we have. If you have missed it, we are in the middle of a series. And if you missed the previous few videos, make sure you go and watch those before you watch this one, because we're going to deep dive in today into evaporating the ego.
Yes, I think the first two videos just really laid framework, if you will, to build from.
Yes.
And today, the work we're going to do is centered more around really looking deeper at who we are in our career. And when we say evaporating the ego, truly there comes a point where that ego's got to move aside, and we've got to look at our truth. So when I say that, I think about the fact that we all build our resumes with this so-called pedigree. I worked with an executive coach one time who I hired to help me, and I'll never forget the day she looked at me and asked me, well, what do I bring to the workplace? And I proceeded to tell her the story, which was, well, first I did this, and then I did this, and I accomplished this, and these were the results, etc., etc., etc. And she finally said, cut it off. I don't want your pedigree. I want to know what you bring to the workplace, what problem you solve. What problem I solve, I had to stop and think, because our work is made up of so many tasks. And frankly, you know, when I look at the tasks that are made up, we think a potential employer wants to know that. They want to know what we're capable of.
We try to fit ourselves in the job description and try to say, oh yeah, these are the things I've accomplished, and instead of really taking a step back and saying, wait, what do I care about? What do I bring to the table for this company? Why did they hire me in the first place? What makes me different? What is going to set me apart from the rest of the people that they're looking at? Not just trying to, well, these are little tasks I've done in my job. It's job description to job description, not job description to problem I'm solving.
And I think when you go on interviews and you see other videos, and by the way, they're all good and very helpful.
Right. But
people talk about make sure you explain to a potential employer, you know, what your results in your job are. And that's important. This is not that.
Right.
This is that high-level brand statement that says, who are you? Well, that statement is really difficult to really determine because of the barriers that you've put up in this pedigree that you have built by going from job to job to job and maybe being a part of an organization. So let's back up a bit here. First, since we've already defined our dream life, let's now define that job. What is the next level job? And I don't just mean a job within a trajectory of a corporation. What is your next level job? Only you can define it. It can be anything from starting your own business. It can be that you want to level up into management, or maybe the mid-level management, or maybe senior management. Maybe you want to be an inventor and start a product. Whatever it is, you must define it. You can't expect anyone else to define it.
maybe it's pivoting industries too.
It could be pivoting, and that's fine, but you define it. So listing out exactly what it is you want to do, be doing. And when I say that, I mean in the industry. You want to be in the tech industry, as an example. You want to be a project manager. You want to be leading a global project. Right there's a nice definition of what that next level job would be, your dream job to level up. Now, you write that down. The next thing you're going to write down is, that's the part that's the hard part to me. It's easy to say, you know, I would like to be doing X. But the next level is, what are you bringing to that job?
What problem are you solving?
What problem are you solving in that job? And let me give you an example. I was coaching a singer. She wanted to sing, of course. That makes sense. She wanted to be a singer. When I asked her, what problem are you solving? She said, I'm going to produce songs and I'm going to sing and I drum up any emotion. Because usually when you're solving a problem, it will drum up an emotion with the person you're trying to help in solving this problem. So let's say you want to be an inventor. An inventor is solving a problem from maybe a product that's not working as efficiently as it should. It's solving the problem for the customer who's going to be using the product.
This is
singer
something that excites you normally. It's
Yes.
like it's a natural, authentic joy that comes from a subject, usually.
The singer ended up giving joy to those who hear her songs. That she was a person that was going to provide joy through music. For me, I love to see people succeed in their careers. I might have been a manager in a training department or a director in an engineering role, but what I brought to the marketplace, the problem I solved, I helped grow the people at FedEx through whatever job I had. I brought that to the table.
And for me, I'm a builder. I've always been building programs and people, and no matter what job I've ever done, that's always been in the background.
So that being said, you can also build upon that once you get in the career, but you've got to have a baseline that you start with so you can articulate what is your brand.
Right.
To LC's point, she's a builder. However, she brings strong project management skills to the table.
Right.
So she can inform a potential employer that she's here to help that employer build what is next in the environment and organize it so that it can be implemented efficiently throughout the environment. But her favorite task is to build something.
Right.
Don't give her a maintenance project. So now she can articulate to a potential
employer, because if the employer doesn't understand, if you just start talking about the job description, trying to fit that to your resume, which is, by the way, what AI normally does, where you try to, fit your resume to fit with the job description, so then the AI will pick up on your resume. That's how the resumes are picked up now by these companies, just to get your foot through the door. But now you've got the interview. How do you really discuss this in a way where they see why they should hire you? And that takes it to the next level. By being able to articulate that to a company, that is huge.
And a potential employer.
Yeah.
So I had a coach. He was an admiral in the military. He had a heart attack. I get a call from the CEO that says, I'm going to give you this employee. I was 25. This employee was 55. And he comes to work for me, and he'd been an admiral. So he had already moved up the ranks.
Wow.
He told me that if I would let him coach me, I would end up being an officer at FedEx. Well, that was my long-term dream. That was on my long-term plan. But the one thing he kept telling me was, what problem are you solving for your superiors? When you go in and speak to them, let them know you're here to do X. What is it? It took me a while to figure out, because you have skill sets that you do bring to the table, and you also bring to the table experiences. You bring to the table where those experiences allowed for you to ensure results. You can describe all of that, but the truth is, when you level all of that up, what were you doing? I was helping to grow the people, the departments of FedEx. I ended up, because I could articulate that, I ended up being an officer that was in training. I then went to engineering. I don't have an engineering degree, but I was growing the people. So they needed someone to go in and lead that effort.
Yeah.
I was over strategic planning. I then ran call centers. It wasn't because I was experienced in those areas. And did I bring skills to the table? Yes. But what was that bigger definition that I was bringing to the table that really gave me brand? And that was the piece.
Right.
And Mike Jones also taught me, this coach, he said, there's one more step in this. Once you've identified that, now remember, on every interaction with a senior level person, I don't care who it is, the next level up from you, or the next level, or the next level, or if I was speaking to the CEO or I was speaking to the board of directors, when I'm speaking to those individuals, what I needed to do was make sure my language at some point incorporated what I bring to the table,
Right.
but also what they were needing at
Yeah.
that point at the table.
Right, because I was about to say, think about it from an employer's perspective. They're looking for someone not just to take that job, but they want someone who can grow in the company and someone who can take on other roles, just as you've described that you did. So the fact that you were able to articulate that, you could move to different parts of the company as needed.
Well, and I wasn't seen as a leader that could only perform a task.
So-
Accounting, finance. Those are task driven. And when you do stay task driven, you usually stay at a lower level and you're not seen to come up and actually work more strategically. So what I'm asking you to do here at the Ladder Lab is to elevate now. You're ready for the next level. You might not be going to a senior level position or even a manager position, but you're leveling up. So let's level up. Let's be serious about this.
And that requires walking in the employer's shoes.
Walking in the employer's shoes and understand what they want and give them what they want. Elsie, in today's world, how many people your age have said, my boss won't help me get promoted. I'm not getting a raise.
I've been there for 3 years. I'm not getting that next job. It's always blaming your circumstances rather than taking the reins of your own career and leveling up.
Well, and seeing what the boss needs. Wait a minute. The boss hired you.
Right.
The boss hired you for this position. So you've been performing at this level.
Right.
What have you brought to the table? And then what have you grown that you're solving a bigger problem for the boss?
Right.
So in this situation, maybe we were building a training department and everyone wanted to be promoted because we were growing the organization. So they felt just because they'd been there, they would be promoted. But they couldn't define for me what they were really good at and that I could count on them for that particular strategic role, the bigger thinking.
Right.
So defining what really their brand statement is.
Right.
There's a lot of training out there on brand statements and we won't go down that path, but technically that is what you're doing. You're branding yourself. I'm the leader who can grow the organization, who can help others succeed and grow other leaders in the organization. So put Sheila in the company to help us do that.
Right. And by doing that too, they also could see, well, maybe this job isn't the best fit. Maybe we could have her over here. Maybe it's bigger than you thought. Because of the way that you said that brought you to the next level for them.
And to your point, when you start thinking like the boss, what is the boss needing? This woman you've been working with that is in insurance, for example, what is the boss needing at the next level? She's conquered the first level sales. Now, what's needed at the next level that she could come in and offer? Thinking, speaking. There's a language the boss is speaking also. Speaking in terms of the way that individual is speaking then enables you to be seen differently. I'm going to say this too. When you start performing at that higher level, before you have the position, and people start to see you living in your brand, what happens is you might be considered for roles in other areas, special projects. It's not just about applying for jobs.
Right, exactly. To exactly that point. But I think in this job, I'm trying to go for this next job, but I'm not in that next job yet. But you're telling me I need to start acting like the next job. How do I go about doing that? And that's really, you take on every task, every project, any big project, special projects you could be a part of.
And you spend time talking to the boss.
Exactly.
Hey, boss, what do you need? I'm here for you. What's your next
It's a proactive thinking.
Exactly.
To get ahead of that. To start really understanding, what she cares about.
Yes.
And applying that already in your current role.
I just had a conversation with someone who is wanting as their next level to own their own business. And they are joining a small business group to start talking with people who are doing this so they speak the language and start learning what are the things I need to be looking for in building out a small business or buying a small business. So it's not just about leveling up in a career path within a large corporation, but the small business individual was asked by one of the growth managers of a venture capitalist firm, what is it that you really are good at? Just because you want to own a business, what do you bring to the table? This individual was able to say they bring to the table. It took them a while to get there, and I worked with them on this, but that they bring to the table the capability of really building out an organization and delegating. They're very good at delegating, and they also want to be in the business of construction. They've got skills in construction, but their biggest capability is building a team who can execute. And he was able to say that. So therefore, there were a couple of individuals who had businesses that they wanted to sell, and they were looking for someone who had that capability because that business was needing the skill set to broaden the team and grow the team. So again, when you can advertise yourself, if you will, with very clear direction.
So really, we're taking the resume and taking the chaos within it and making it clear, making it very, very clear what you're offering, what you're bringing to the table.
Which is really in one statement.
Yes.
It's one simple statement.
This isn't long. This is
right.
Exactly.
The first thing you define that means you might have to let go of the ego. For example, when I was talking with a very large corporation in New York about a potential position, they didn't care that I was an officer somewhere. What they cared was this brand statement. So that meant I had to let go of the pedigree, let go of the ego. Then I had to understand what they were looking for. And frankly, they were looking for someone who could come and redesign their entire customer experience organization and offering. That's what they were looking for. So once I understood that, I could apply this brand statement to that need, and now I've got a solution for them, and frankly, they can offer me a pretty good job with that solution if indeed what they were offering me matched what I needed. But truly, my goal was to ensure that they understood I've got a product to give them, and that was me.
And I think with the ego, we get so wrapped up in our titles that we currently have. Like, I'm a senior manager. Oh, I'm so proud of that title. I've really earned it. But that maybe doesn't transfer to the next job. By letting go of that title, you're letting go of the ego and saying, I'm willing to do anything. My brand statement says I'm a builder. Maybe that's beyond that title. Maybe that's a step back from that title to get to the next state. We'll talk about all of this later, but it requires letting go and being honest and saying exactly what you offer and why you're the best person for that job.
Yeah. So the next task.
Okay, ready.
The next tasks are, you've got to look at that resume, step back, really evaluate what you bring to the table in a one sentence. For me, I help others succeed. That is my brand statement, and I can take that and grow an organization that helps an organization have successful levels of people who are growing in that organization. But my statement is, I help others succeed. Very simple. And LC, the next thing that they would do is, after they've listed out what they do, they then need to look at that next level job. What is that boss, that industry, that function needing solving?
Yeah.
What problem can you solve for them with the branding that you bring to the table?
Absolutely.
And then basically what you're doing at that point is you're walking a mile in your employer's shoes. And maybe your employer is a small business, a large business, an individual business, whatever it is, you're now able to see the work that is needed in that organization from their eyes and apply your skill set into their organization.
And because we've let go of the ego, and because we're now at this point, you can finally accept the truth of what your current state and where you're headed. and your brand statement, how it all flows together, but it requires a letting go. And now we're ready to accept the truth.
We're ready to narrow it down to that very simple statement and an understanding the boss has a need. If we're going to promote, we're going to need to find somebody where our brand fits their need.
Yeah. Well, now that we've discussed all of this, make sure to click in the link in the description below to see how these frameworks apply to the job markets of today.
Sounds good.
I'm excited.
Me too.